Okay. So while it might seem like everything fits so perfectly with the Great Depression and New Deal, students struggle with it. And they struggle with it because of the, like I said before in the first video for 1920s for this this unit, is that what they're really struggling with is the economic section of it and then part of the government section of it. Why is it a problem for the United States to get involved in things like helping out the people when there's a global issue? And why is it a problem for the government to get involved in business if they're not doing what they should do? This is a very now thinking, right? It's not well, before they weren't doing that. They weren't getting involved like that because it was perceived that private business was the individual area of concern. It wasn't, we don't want the government involved. And this is going to be that pivotal moment here where those Alexis de Tocqueville values that we talked about, we're going to be bringing in individualism with Herbert Hoover's rugged individualism, and we're going to be bringing that in. So you'll be bringing in that next Alexis de Tocqueville value, okay? And we love this value because we love it when we want it, but when we're in trouble, we don't want it. We want the government to help in some form, okay? So to get that historical thinking, we have to understand that historically, the people didn't want the government involved in all their business, okay? And so Herbert Hoover is more of a traditionalist in this when he says, hey, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go get a job and rugged individualism and make your way, but at a certain point, there is no making your way. If there's a lot of things going against you, like a fallen economy. Also a great time to bring in Keynesian economics and to start talking about how we are going to deal with this problem from here. And not just to talk about how we're going to deal with this problem from here, but to help out your economics teachers for next year and get your kids already knowing kind of who Keynes is and what he believes in and how he, says that we are going to fix this. Also a great time to go back over to the Gilded Age and talk about your monopoly owners because it's their money that's also going to help the United States get out of the rut that she finds herself in. Now, your first is going to be 12A. So when we get into this, we're going to remind them, hey, remember when I said over there in the 1920s, we're buying things on credit? Well, guess who was also buying things on credit? Farmers. Farmers were buying things on credit. And they were buying these new, awesome machines that were going to help them start making more and more agricultural products faster. But hey, economics lesson here. When you flood the market with a specific product, it lowers the price of the product because now people can get it anywhere. It increases the ability to buy it. If multiple people are creating that same product and it's flooded, then it is now a competition game. Price is lower. So farmers are going to be producing a lot more product. They're going to flood the market. They're going to find that they're not making as much money as they thought they would. So now they have things that they bought on credit that they had to pay for. They have mortgages because they got to pay for their farms, and they also have to pay to ship their crops. They have to pay to replant their crops, and what they're going to find is they're having to produce more every year in order to continue to make their bills. Very, very difficult for farmers, and many of them are going to go under because of this credit issue. Now, but what's going to happen if you're producing on your on your farm a crop that pulls the nutrients out of the ground? Then what you're going to have is depleted nutrients. The ground is no longer going to have the nutrients it needs to keep the soil where it needs to be and to make it to where you can actually produce. Have a crop that is fruitful and produces. So we're going to have the Dust Bowl, right? And we're going to have the Dust Bowl happen, and it's going to be all up in that area right there, that plains area of the United States right there in the center, and we're going to have the Dust Bowl. And so now, on top of a crashing economy, what we're going to have is not as much agricultural output. So people are going to be hungry and they're not going to have jobs. They're not going to have money. They're going to be losing all their stuff. They're going to be homeless. We're going to have Hoovervilles put up everywhere as a way to make fun of the president for his rugged individuality. How's this working? Look at us living in, we're homeless and we're having to build ramshackle houses out of metal. And you know what? We're going to go ahead and call them Hoovervilles because we believe it's your fault and your administration's fault for turning a blind eye to the people who are in need. So, but of course, right before all this happens, we have to talk about why did the stock market crash in the first place? Well, we have bank failures who are also investing money on or buying stock on credit through speculation, which is the idea that you are projecting what you think that stock is going to be worth without actually knowing what it's going to be worth. So you're going to buy it at a price that you think that it's kind of going to be worth for. You're going to pay 10% of that price that is speculated, okay? And then when you go to sell it, you're going to hope that the stock has gone up, right? Because buying stock is a gamble game. So you're going to hope that it goes up. And then when you sell it, you'll pay back what you did not pay in the first place. So the 90% of the cost of what you bought it for. You'll pay that back, and then whatever's left over is yours. Okay. So this is the idea of speculation and buying on margin. Speculate what it's going to be worth in the future, buy it, and then only pay 10% of it, pay the other 90% when you sell it. So, but unfortunately for people when the stock market crashes, because everything is overinflated, and speculation is raising up stock prices for more than what they're actually worth. And when people start slowing down their buying, because projecting a recession is always a kind of a self-propelled truth. You put it out there and then it just kind of, people start to panic and they stop spending more. Hey, you can come in. So now we are officially in a recession. Now, what makes this recession a depression, and a great one at that, is because of all the factors that went into play. The stock market does crash, but hey, because the banks were investing people's money, and when people flood the bank, now the bank is out of money themselves, and we're going to have a lot of bank failures. So we had the issue of buying on speculation and buying on margin, and then we have the bank failures. We're also going to have the monetary policy issue with the Federal Reserve. So the Fed can make it to where risky loans are less likely to happen. And so risky loans had not been stopped. There was a lot of risky loans going on, and people are going to default on those loans. But there is also the issue of not enough money in circulation. There's just a lot of issues going on. The United States is going to learn through those issues, of course, when we pass the New Deal. And we have the idea of reforms that are going to change things. We're going to have relief, recovery, and reforms. So relief is going to be something that provides immediate help. Recovery is going to kind of help you get back on your feet through a couple of years. And then reform is going to be all-out changes to the system. So this kind of thing doesn't happen again. But that's not going to happen right away, because pushing these new deals is not something that people necessarily agree with, especially constitutionally. Now, we just went over 16B, which was the identifying the causes. We're going to go over 16C, which is analyze the effects of the Great Depression. And I personally think that New Deal is an effect of the Constitution. We wouldn't have had the New Deal had we, or not the Constitution, of the Great Depression. We wouldn't have had the New Deal had we not had the Great Depression. So it is kind of an effect. But when they're talking about the effects of the Great Depression, what they're really going to focus on is the social and economical effects to the people. So people are homeless. We are going to have teenage boys who are going to leave home and ride the rails to look for work because they can't stay home. There's nothing to eat there. Can't find jobs around where they're at. We're going to have young girls and women going and working places, trying to find like maid jobs and stuff like that. We're going to have repatriation, which is the idea that we're going to be sending people of Mexican heritage back to Mexico, whether they're citizens of the United States or not, because we say that we want their jobs for American people. So this is that nativism again, rearing its ugly head in the United States. And so that is something that you need to focus on. I think there was one question last year or the year before on that. The other effects outside of losing one's home and being homeless and bread lines, people are going to be waiting in line for food so that they can eat. And an interesting fact about that, one of the major bread lines was done by the mob, right? So the mob is going to organize a bread line so people can go and get fed. And it's interesting mainly because the government has not quite stepped in yet to fix this issue. But the government will step in. Hoover will be out and Roosevelt will get voted in. And his wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, is someone to consider talking about because she's often quoted. So kind of going into who she was as a person. So when they see a quote by her, they already know the characteristics of her and what they're looking for as far as answering. We have... let's see, the 18B, which is the constitutional issues raised during the Great Depression, which is going to go with 16D, which is the opponents to the New Deal and the people who support it. So, and really the constitutional issue here is packing the court, okay? The constitutional issue is Roosevelt trying to put on more Supreme Court justices on the to be seated that agree with the way he sees things as a way to try and push his own agenda, so that when these constitutional issues are raised, they will be yes men for him. They will rule in his favor. And we see kind of a packing the court with almost every administration, no matter what side of the fence that they're on. We always see some kind of form of packing the court at this point. So that's really interesting thing that we can start to talk about when we get into the New Deal. Of course, Roosevelt is going to succeed and the New Deal is going to pass. And what we will have are these New Deal programs like I talked about. Really, the ones that they need to know about are the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insures your money. in the bank up to so much. The Securities and Exchange Commission, which is going to regulate the stock market, the Social Security Administration, money for old people and now disabled, continue to affect the lives. So it doesn't mention them, but sometimes they're tested. We have the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, that is going to set up electricity and jobs for people in the Appalachian Mountains area. And let's see, Social Security. We will also have the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, which will go around and build, it'll be young men mostly who are hired to go around and build parks. The Agricultural Adjustment Act, which will help stabilize the economy. It'll limit agricultural production, so it'll be like giving subsidies to farmers to not farm in order to stop the flooding of the market. What else do we have? Public Works Administration, which is going to provide a lot of jobs for building infrastructure, like the Hoover Dam and the Lincoln Tunnel. Let's see, the National Housing Act, which will make housing more affordable. The WPA, which is going to give jobs to unemployed citizens for roads and stuff like that. It's also going to really supply your artists, musicians, writers, and actors. Dorothea Lange, she's going to be the one that took the picture of the migrant mother. That's a picture that's often used on the star, so definitely one to show your kids. So those are the major New Deal agencies. You can introduce the rest of them if you want to, but those are the ones that are going to probably be tested over. Let's see, 16D, 16E. That's literally everything. There's really not a lot in the Great Depression and New Deal because it's such a focused unit, but for the 1930s and early 1940s. But we're introducing concepts that we'll be building on later, like the idea of flooding the market, which they'll get. A lot of this stuff that they're going to get later in economics and government as a senior. But some of these things, like the government, constitutional issues that are raised, students really need to have a working understanding at what that means. And these people are often tested, so it's a big unit. It's a small unit, but it's an important unit.